Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nneka Symister, and I want to welcome you to Creating Work Opportunities 2021 Part 2. We had a very robust conversation last month about where work was going and how you can transition from what you were doing as stagehands into the work world, whether it be as an entrepreneur or just going into other fields. And so from that conversation, we had a lot of questions about how to do that. And so we decided to come together and talk about transferable skills. And so I want to introduce Roslyn Gilbert from Actors Fund to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing and what to expect. Ros?
Hi, thank you, Nneka. Hi, my name is Roslyn Gilbert, and I'm Supervisor of Addiction and Recovery Services at the Actors Fund. It's been my pleasure to work with Nneka Symister, Bobby Score, and Tamar Shapiro, National Director of Social Services at the Actors Fund, to develop this seminar series. And also, thank you for the invaluable technical assistance, Michael Zalar, Administrative Assistant in the Actors Fund Social Services Department. Before we begin, I want to share information about the Actors Fund. As you may know, the Actors Fund is a human services organization that provides services to all who work in the performing arts and entertainment community. We offer a wide range of services, including social services and emergency financial assistance, career counseling and education and training, health insurance counseling and healthcare through the Friedman Health Center, Local One's medical home, a housing resource center, and our own home located in Englewood, New Jersey. Most importantly, your health and welfare fund contracts with the Actors Fund to be your member assistance program. We provide free confidential support and assistance for you and your family members. Our social workers provide short-term counseling and support, identify problems, and when appropriate, provide referrals to outside specialists and community agencies. We help with emotional, family, and marital problems, problems with stress, substance abuse, financial, and workplace problems, as well as senior care. Today, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker, Christopher Bloodworth, National Director of the Career Center of the Actors Fund. As the chief workplace development and training expert, he develops the policies and theoretical approach and service modalities that support 3,000 performing arts and entertainment professionals who utilize these services annually. Prior to joining the Actors Fund, Christopher served as the Director of Education and Workforce Development at the Stanley M. Isaacs Neighborhood Center. He has also served in leadership roles at Catholic Charities Brooklyn, Queens, and in the corporate sector at the Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association of America College Retirement Equities Fund. Christopher has a bachelor's degree in psychology from the College of Old Westbury and a master's degree from the Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College. He proudly serves on the boards of the New York City Education and Training Coalition and the International Organization for the Transition of Professional Dancers. In addition to his formal roles, Christopher is a writer, photographer, podcast host, and avid mentor to several young adults throughout New York City. And now Christopher will be speaking with Nneka in Local One's Life at Home series, Creating Work Opportunities in 2021, Part 2. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Christopher. As I was listening to your resume, I was thinking to myself, what a perfect person to talk about how they can use all their skill sets in several different places, right? Not only are you working for the Actors Fund, but you being a photographer and a musician, and I think like 1,000 other things I heard, right? And so, which is really amazing. I just wanted to say, I know people may be thinking, why are we working together in this manner, especially as the healthcare coordinator who discusses a lot of things around mental health. And I just wanted to highlight before we go into the transitional skills that we understand that this is what is affecting everyone's mental health. You know, not working right now has shifted how people see themselves, how they show up in the world, how they're going to support their families, support themselves, and just every part of their life, right? And so it's not that it's just about work, but understanding how work impacts your mental health. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone who is still willing to have this very complicated conversation. I think you're right. Work plays such an important role in our lives, especially in the United States. Work is often a huge part of our identity. And as a result of that, when we are working, there's a way that we feel about ourselves. And when we are not working, there's a way that we feel about ourselves. And I think it's important for people to take some time to, one, recognize that this is an incredibly difficult time for a lot of people, and especially many people in the performing arts and entertainment. And it's a difficult time for individuals in Local 1, people who are typically working on live sets, right? And working in live theater. This is a time in which we've not seen before, that is incredibly frustrating and irritating and demoralizing in some ways. But it is also a time for us to think about what we have, where we're going, and how to get there. So I think that all of it is important and necessary.
So I know when we talked about having this webinar, a couple of things came up, right? We recognized that there'll be different type of members listening to this, right? Not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when we're looking at transferable skills, we're not looking at it on how to build a business, but also how to transfer those skills into other places. And not only looking at this, or not looking at it only as if you're replacing your current work, right? Because the goal is to get back to work, right? Most stagehands want to remain stagehands. And so really seeing this as it can be long-term, but it can also be temporary. Does that make sense? And really wanting to people to kind of step back and kind of look at the big picture of it and not see it in one way, or using this as for one avenue.
Yeah, one of the ways that I define work is not necessarily based solely on the job that you have, right? Work is all of who you are and all that you do to create opportunities for yourself to gain money, right? And so work can be looked at in a variety of ways. And so one of the things that I want people to begin thinking about, and how we've been coaching people in the Career Center, is think about all of who you are and all of what you do or can do, and how all of those ways can bring opportunities for income to you. And that's a different way of looking at work. I think sometimes if we think about work in a very linear way or in a very historical way, it's like, it's my job, it's this, and that's one way of thinking about it. But during this time where we're asking so many people in the performing arts to think differently, to think broadly, to think outside of what they would normally be doing, it's important that we also remind people that this is the time for them also to remember who they are and remember all of the skills, knowledge, and experiences that they've had over the course of their work history, and how that collection of information can help them begin to navigate this really difficult time.
Yeah, definitely. I know that when we sent out the invitation, we attached a list of some of the skills that we identified. And so please know that this is some of the skills, right? We couldn't imagine all the skills that everyone has. And so please feel free to add to that. Please, if you have questions as we're speaking, go into the Q&A part of the chat. We'll definitely answer any questions that come up as we see them. So I'll be monitoring that for you, Chris, and shooting them to you. So let's get started. right? I know we have some lists. In what's number one? Let's go right through them.
Yeah, so before we start, one of the things that I wanted to just tag on to what I was saying before is really understanding what a skill is. And it's important because, you know, a lot of times we can go through our work schedule, through our day, through our lives, and not really think that we are acquiring much. And for a lot of people, if you have to sit down and start thinking about a resume, if you haven't had to do this in some time, especially a civilian resume, right? I have to start thinking about a resume. I have to start thinking about all these things. You might get to a space where you would say, oh, I don't have anything, or I don't know anything, or I don't know what to put, or I don't know how to do that, right? But a skill essentially is, like I said earlier, it's the knowledge that you've gained over the course of your life. It's the abilities that you have cultivated during that time, and it's the experiences that you've had over that time. And so first understanding what skills are and how to really think about skills in that way, I think will help a lot of people begin to think about who they are and what they do. So to your point that you said earlier, the list that we provided are really the top transferable skills that we believe individuals in Local 1 have, but it's not necessarily all of the skills that individuals have attained over the course of their career. But these are not just the top ones that we see in Local 1 members, but they're also the top skills that employers are looking for individuals to bring to the workplace, right? So that's the one thing that I wanted to highlight. And I also wanted to say that, again, that these things are developed over the course of your life, right? And they're honed through repetition. And that's an important part of thinking about this, right? And a lot of them, what you will see on this list are soft skills. And the things that we define as soft skills are skills that are interpersonal in nature and are often much more difficult to see and to measure at times, but they are probably the most important skills for employers because they let them know how well you work with other people and you work within a team, with partners, etc. Right? So that's why these soft skills are so important. And hard skills are skills that are, you know, high in technicalities, right? So that's when we're talking about carpentry skills or electrician skills, right? Those skills are hard skills. And while those are important, they may not necessarily transition from one position to the next, for example, but soft skills go with you everywhere you go. So I just wanted to highlight that before we dove into the skills there, right?
Yeah, definitely. So can you give me an example of one of the soft skills that you listed?
Yeah, the first one is critical thinking. And critical thinking, as you might have noticed on the sheet, is really how do you process information? How do you gather, discern information? How do you use information and turn that information into what would be the second one is problem solving, right? And so the thing with critical thinking skills, and this is something that everyone in Local 1 experiences, right? You're on the set, something is about to happen or needs to happen, and you are the person who's standing in between it happening and it not happening. How are you using your thinking skills in that moment to come up with some type of solution that could work, right? And so that's that critical thinking skill. And critical thinking, as I mentioned in the document, individuals with critical thinking skills can be trusted to make decisions independently. And that's really important to employers. And so you want to be able to articulate to people that based on the work that you have been doing over the course of your career, you've really honed in on your critical thinking skills and that you can work independently. You do not need someone to hold your hand, and you are someone that they can trust to get the job done in the last minute. You know, as the curtain is going up, you are going to make certain that things happen. So critical thinking skills is really, really crucial and probably the top skill that you want to make certain that you are articulating to people.
That's so funny that you say that, and you hit it right on the nose. I think so many of the members do that so quickly without effort that they don't recognize it as a skill, right? When you think about all the safety measures that have to be taken, um, and to ensure that everyone's safe, ensure that yourself is safe, there's a lot of quick decision making, right? And
Absolutely.
again, there's so many moving parts. People are going and doing their own thing. You're working around people all the time. So yes, you're working with, but you're also working as an individual because you're responsible for your one thing. And so I really like that you highlighted that because I don't think people recognize it because it becomes such second nature, that they may not even see it as a skill, right? They're like, no, this is just what it is. It just happens this way, and it doesn't, right? It doesn't.
Yeah.
You're actually doing that work.
Yeah, and that part of being quick to come up with solutions to something that could potentially cause the show to be disrupted, right?
Yes.
That quick thinking, that is a skill. It's a valuable skill, and I encourage everyone to start thinking about not just, oh yeah, I have this skill, but examples of when you've utilized that skill, because it's through your examples that you will be able to let people know, either a hiring manager or a potential client that you're bringing on through an entrepreneurial endeavor that you have, is like, this is how I work, and this is how I'll be able to solve your problem because I'm really skilled at critical thinking.
I have a question. You may have answered it, but maybe not. How would someone document that on a resume, right? Would it be under critical thinking? Or would it be just the examples and critical thinking is assumed? What would that look like on paper? Or
Yeah,
what
so
should it look like?
there are a couple of ways in which you can do it. You can absolutely do it on your resume. In our resume workshop at the Career Center, we talk about this acronym called PAR, which is Problem, Action, and Result. And PAR, we use that to really help people articulate, like, what's a problem that existed in your workplace? What is the action that you took, and what was the result of that action, right? And so then those can turn into what we call accomplishment statements. And accomplishment statements can become a bullet under a particular job that you have. You can use accomplishment statements, even if you list, the job and the various activities that you participated in that job. And then you can say highlights of this position. You can use an accomplishment statement there to say, this was a problem that happened, this was the action, and this was the result. So therefore, you're showing your impact and the way in which you think and how people respond to you based on your ability to critical think. Or any of these transferable skills, you can use that PAR statement on your cover letter. And cover letters are a surefire way of helping people understand a deeper, your cover letter is a really great way of helping people understand more clearly what you do and how you perform in your job. And it will show up slightly differently on the cover letter than it will in the resume, because on the cover letter, you can actually tell the story. And in the resume, you're not necessarily going to have all of those opportunities. So PAR is an acronym that I encourage people to use and think about, because once you've come up with your PAR, what was the problem? What was the action that you took? And what was the result? That then becomes an accomplishment statement that can be added to a resume.
And you can pretty much use all the soft skills in that way, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some people may, depending on how you outline your resume, you may actually want to have a section on your resume that highlights your skills, for example, right? And so therefore you're letting people know, like, your skills, I'm a critical thinker and I'm a problem solver, right? That I have the ability not only to think about what needs to happen or what could happen, I actually can execute it. I can make it happen, right? And so that's the thing. So some people are great with coming up with ideas, but can't necessarily execute it. One of the things that we talked about with Local One members is that there's a double punch there, right? I come up with it and then I can execute on it, right? And those are two critical skills that every employer wants. And it doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter. Every employer wants people who know how to think and who know how to execute.
How would that look if I wanted to start a business? And again, this question is for all, right? I'm not going to go through each one, but overall, how would this then translate if I was starting a business?
Yeah, so it's a similar thing. Customers tend to, let's say you were starting a home improvement business where you were coming into someone's home and you wanted to build their built-in bookcases, for example. How do you articulate clearly what you can do and what is needed, right? So part of it is first understanding what does the customer want, right? So asking figuring out what do you want, and then problem solving with the customer, right? Coming into the space, doing an estimate, saying, okay, I know you said 6 feet, but your ceilings are actually 5.9. And if we do crown molding, or if we have to deal with electricity, we're going to have to, allot for this space, right? That is the type of critical thinking and problem solving. And even if we get into the next one as well, which is quality control, right? That helps you begin to help that client know how their end product will look and what's the best course of action for their implementation, right? To implement their things, right? And so all of those, you're right, it works both with an employer and a potential client that you may be recruiting or securing on your own, helping them to understand how you think, how you problem solve, and we're up to quality control or attention to detail, which is crucial for this community, because people pay great money to come and see live performances, and they want to ensure that the sets, the props, the timing, everything has to be on point. And not only do the paying customer want that, but the show producers, the directors, the stage manager, everybody wants to make sure that everything is happening on time, and that is quality. And so this idea of quality control or quality assurance, as we've outlined it here, really speaks to this community's ability to really have high efficiency over things, to reduce waste, and really create an environment where you can expect what needs to happen, because I've made certain that I've dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's. And that's something that every employer wants and needs. And I also said in the document that people receive that individuals with high quality control skills are focused, take ownership of their work, pay attention to areas of concern, and schedule time checks to ensure accuracy. And so that's something, again, that not everybody has, right? Not everybody has it. There are a lot of people who will say, I pay attention to details, but not necessarily do it, right? But we know that people in Local One do it, because the show suffers if it's not done.
Right. Right. But it's also about being honest, right? Being honest with yourself about your skill set, right? I mean, there are times I know when people are making up their resumes, they go to certain places and they just kind of copy and paste. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that, and they didn't review it. And I'm like, you didn't do 3 of these things on here. You don't want to be caught out there having to explain something that you didn't actually do, or get hired for something that you can't actually do, right? So it also requires you to be honest and saying, this is where I'm really good. Maybe this not so much, right? Because no one's perfect. And so to me, those three things go hand in hand, right? That you mentioned, the problem solving, the quality control, really, I think comes easy for everyone. What about adaptability?
Yeah, adaptability, this is a strength,
Right.
right? The
Right.
ability to be able to adapt to a constantly changing, moving, evolving scenario. And this is something, that happens all the time backstage, right? Or during the setup or pre-production.
Or
It's
just looking for other places. Not everyone has a steady location, right?
correct.
So many of the members are moving from house to house and show to show, right? And
Absolutely.
so,
And being able to adapt is really a skill where you're able to bring in new information, apply it to what you know already, and then fit in where you need to fit in order to make what needs to happen happen. And this is one of those skills that I put up there with empathy, which some people have argued that empathy is one of the most sophisticated of emotions because it requires you to eject yourself from yourself and put yourself in someone else's shoes. Adaptability is often really, really difficult to do for a lot of people because they are so used to doing things their way
way.
and only their way that when they are presented with something new, there's a stumbling block that they have to overcome in order to move into this new direction. But with people in this industry, one of the things that we find, like you say, they may move from this show to this show all within a week, and the shows are different, the directions are different, but individuals are able to come in and fit in and adapt to whatever needs to happen in that space. And that is a crucial, critical skill that every employer looks for, needs, and wants.
So I have a question because you just said something that really stood out to me, right? That you may hit a stumbling block because you've been doing something for a long time. Many of these members have been working 20, 30 years, right? Lucky enough to be in one place. What if you happen to be one of those people who didn't have to really look around, who had a steady location for a really long time? I can understand having a stumbling block, being really fearful of that change because you just have no idea what that can look like. I mean, so many things change so quickly, right? I mean, just the work world, right? At one point, we talked about this. You could just take your resume, go to the place, drop it off on someone's desk or whatever. Now you don't have a phone number. People don't even look at resumes. There are machines that are picking them up, and all these other things. So how would someone, I know there's no clear answer for every person, but how would someone be able to kind of overcome that fear? What would they need to look at? What would they need to be doing or thinking about to really push through that stumbling block?
Well, one, I want to normalize the process of change.
Right.
Right? So I want to normalize that and really say that all of us stumble in the face of change. Everyone, when first presented with something that is different from what they know, are used to, etc., they stumble. And so that's a normal response that all of us have. One of the things that I use to define, a simple definition that I use to define change is the process of adapting to a new reality. And so all of us have at some point in time had the challenge of adapting to a new process. In a matter of a week or so, we're going to be adapting to a time change, right? So we're going to spring forward with the time, right? So we're going to move up an hour. That is always a difficult time of the year for me because it's like, wow, I'm losing. It feels like I'm losing an hour, right? And so now what was once early is now late. And so I have to adapt everything during that time. And so I would say to people, it's normal to feel off put by the process of change. What it is important to do is to remember, recall, lean on, or lean into those spaces that you've utilized before when you felt as if you were not going to make it or not going to understand something new, right? So there are a lot of, in order to keep certain licenses, there are a lot of, new things that you have to study, or workshops or classes that you have to take in order to make certain that you're doing things according to code. And you've been able to do those things. It's taken time, it takes excess energy, and yet you've been able to do it. So I would encourage people to lean into and lean back on those muscles to help move them to the next spot. And then again, things like what we're doing today, right? Attend a seminar, reach out to the Actors Fund. We have a number of different workshops and support systems to help people navigate those rough spots that they are feeling that's preventing them from moving ahead. Some of it may just be sitting and talking to someone about the struggle of having to think about doing something differently, right? So we have people that you can talk to about that. And then others may just be about, well, I know I have to do it, I just don't know how to do it, right? And that's where places like the Career Center can help you begin to understand and really unpack those troubled areas and help you get over that hump. But don't be afraid or think at all that, I can't. Because you can, and there are lots of supports that that you all are doing, and that we at the Actors Fund are doing to help support people through this transition.
So the two main things I hear you saying is, one, use your resources, right? We're here, we're available to you, and we'll be here to help. But two, lean back on the fact that you've done this before, right? And I'm glad you said that. Lean back. Whether even if it wasn't for work, right? At one point you lived with your parents, and then you lived on your own. You were single, and then you were married. If you have children, you didn't have children, then you had children. You're constantly changing, right? You're constantly throughout your life, if you look throughout your lifeline, have had these moments when you had to change and grow and be stretched and learn something new. And for the most part, most people have accomplished that. So I love to hear that just like you've done this already. It's scary, but you've done it before. Right?
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
and that's okay. So what's next on the list? Organized?
Yeah, organizational skills. This is I laugh because this is one of those skills that people will often say that they have and not really have.
I just said that because I have a question, Zach, before you even go in, Zach, because I smiled because I thought to myself, I think I'm organized. But if someone else was to see it, they will be like, that's an organization, right? Like, this is an organized mess, right? And so the first thing that came to my mind is organization is relative. And so talk to me about that, right? Because people see it very differently, how do you use that? And when are you being honest? When are you really organized and when are you not?
Yeah, it's a good point, because everybody's organizational system
Right.
is different. And this is true and consistent across industries, individuals, regardless. It's different. But there's some key points of organized that I want people to take away, which is you use your resources efficiently and effectively. And that really is the key. Like, how efficiently and effectively are you using your resources? It's not a matter of whether whether someone else understands your system, as much as it is about you being able to make things connect in the time period or in the way they are expected to connect, right? No two carpenters are going to build a bookshelf the same way, but they'll build it and it'll stand and it's solid. But they will go about the process of organizing it differently. But the goal there is really about efficiently and effectively. And I say also there that organizational skills establish a sense of trust and professionalism in the workplace. All right, good organizational skills help to reduce stress for you, your coworkers, and your employer. Right, all of these are kind of tying into one another, and I'm sure that you may have noticed this, and some of the other people who are reading this may have noticed, is that they are overlapping in some ways, but they're distinctive in their approach.
Just want to remind folks that are out there, if you have any questions, feel free to ask as we go through this. So what about resourcefulness?
Yes, resourcefulness. You know, one of the reasons why I like this so much is you make the impossible possible, right? There are all Broadway, for example, is such an imaginative place, and some of the things, the sets, the creations that have to come to life are things that may never have been seen or recognized or understood in any real way. And then we have artisans who come in and who turn these empty stages into these incredibly elaborate, imaginative spaces. And that's what resourcefulness is. It's like, how can I take something that seems impossible and make it into something? I remember when I went to go see King Kong on Broadway, and I was so amazed at the Kong. I was so amazed at how, and it's like, how did that come to be? And the only way that that came to be is because of a group of people who were thinking outside of the box of how can we make this creature come to life, be menacing, be safe, and reactive. How can I make this happen? And that's what I mean by resourcefulness. It is about out of the box thinking. It's about generating new ideas and ability to visualize all the ways to achieve your intended goal. And that right there is something that is seen in this particular community and should be expressed every chance you get, to let people not only know, but provide evidence, again, through those PAR statements, provide evidence of, this is how I have been resourceful in the past, right? These are the ways that I've been innovative. These are the ideas that I've brought to a production and allowed it to move beyond idea to practice, right? From the space of it's in my head to we've implemented it. And so that's what resourcefulness is really aiming at.
Also, I want to ask about resourcefulness around using your kind of community when I think about entrepreneurship, right? I know we talked about, using your Facebook, the people that you need. Would that fall under resourcefulness as well?
Yeah. And again, it goes back to problem solving, right? So if you're critically thinking about, who do I know that has contacts with someone who is going to help me do X, right? It's about the critical thinking. It's about problem solving. It's about being resourceful. How do you get to those individuals? So that's how that's a great example. That's a way in which you turn it on its head and use it in areas that you might not have been using it before, and figuring out ways. So maybe you've been telephoning someone and actually picking up the phone, which seems strange nowadays, to pick up the phone and call someone. And then you may say, wait, maybe I shouldn't call, maybe I should email, or maybe I need to text, right? So that's that, using that critical thinking, problem solving, being resourceful, reaching out on social media, et cetera, may get you to that space of gaining a new client, building relationships with someone else that's going to connect you to the person that you are interested in being connected to.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too for members who sell things, right? You make something, whether it be candles and ornaments, lamps. What else are people making? A lot of creative, amazing things, right? And they're like, well, how do I know who's going to buy it? Who do I go to, right? And so we talk to them about using their resources, right? Using the membership, right? Starting there with your brothers and sisters who you've worked with and who they can pass that down to, right? So it's really broad. It seems resourcefulness can be used in different ways.
Absolutely. And I would encourage people to do that and really lean into their understanding of their own resourcefulness, right? And you'll know it, and it'll come easy once you start the problem solving process. Once you start that, then you'll recognize like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, right? And I've seen all of the varied ways in which Local One members have been pivoting during this time and using their talents and creating new opportunities for themselves. And that is an example of resourcefulness.
So I want to go, I'm going to skip over a little bit because this one to me connects really closely to relationship building.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So relationship building is, as I say here, is vital for career success, right? And this is this is the soft skill of soft skill. And you need relationships. And this is the thing that I want to say to everyone listening. Typically relationship building is expected to be natural to people who consider themselves extroverted, and those are people who derive energy from external spaces, right? Out and about at networking events, parties, talking to people, etc. Those people are expected to be, expert relationship builders, and introverts are usually not necessarily proclaimed relationship builders. And those are people who derive their energy from quiet and thinking and internal processing. Relationship building is necessary for everyone, and it is a requirement for everyone, especially in the context of work, and or in the context of expanding your ideas, right? You may have a great idea, you may have a great product or a great thought for a business. If you keep it contained within your own self,
right. The world
doesn't grow.
Yeah.
But it doesn't grow.
I'm sorry. What if you are an introvert though, right? And it doesn't come so naturally, right? I mean, one of the things about doing some of this work is that you can, although you work with a lot of people, you have your particular job, you can kind of just throw on some headphones or, but just get into a groove and do your own thing. So, and again, you see the same people for the most part, you understand there's some comfort there. If I'm an introvert and I'm going right out into something new,
it's hard.
Would I do that? Yeah, it's really hard.
It's hard. People laugh when I say this, but I am an introvert. And not only am I an introvert.
I did laugh.
They do, because they don't believe it. And the reason why they don't believe it is because I've learned how to utilize extroverted tendencies through my job. I have to have extroverted tendencies. But I am both an introvert and a recluse. I prefer to be by myself and to myself. But through the nature of work, I have to build these relationships. And so these things that I've outlined in the relationship building section are things that I specifically think that will help, that I know will help people and have helped me. So like taking the initiative to start conversations, right? It's a little thing, and you don't have to start it with everyone. You can start small, right? Start a conversation with, as you mentioned earlier, someone on social media that you've seen that has an aligned interest to what you want to do, right? Take initiative to start a conversation with them to find out a little bit more, because that one conversation could lead to another conversation that could lead to two different additional conversations, right? That gets you closer to your goal. Look for ways to collaborate, right? If there are members within the union that are doing things that's similar to what you are interested in doing, figure out how you can collaborate, right? All of that is the beginning roads to relationship building. Ask questions and listen to responses, which is an important skill, right? A lot of people ask questions, but then they tune out because they're figuring out what they want to ask next, right? Offering to help without being asked is another way to build relationships. Being supportive in tough situations is another way. You may, for example, for those people who are on LinkedIn, you may see a post of someone saying recently that something terrible has happened to them connected to work, and you reach out and say, wow, you know, I remember something similar happened to me. This is what I did. You know, this is how I got through it, right? That's an example of being supportive. And then respecting boundaries, others in your own, in regards of when to push, when not to push, etc. But relationship building is crucial, necessary, and when overlooked, can undermine all of the work that you have put into place with all of these other soft skills.
Yeah, that's so true. I just want to pivot for a second, just because you mentioned LinkedIn. And I know a lot of people don't think that this work would be long on LinkedIn. And so if you can give just a really small explanation of what LinkedIn is and how it can work for this particular population of people, for local one.
Absolutely. So LinkedIn is a social media network that is similar, if you will, in the terms of connecting people to Facebook, except LinkedIn is not for personal relationships. It's about business connections or about professional connections. And so it is a platform that you use to really highlight. It's a digital resume. It's the easiest way to describe it. It's a digital place where you can articulate what you've done, articulate who you've worked for, what type of projects you've worked on, highlight all of your skills that you see as attractive, and you know that's attractive to employers and other people who may be looking for your resources. And it's a way to network and leverage work, right? So it's a way to network and leverage work. And individuals in the arts and entertainment sector, it's a great platform because then you get an opportunity to really connect with other movers and shakers within the industry and really, again, connect with them and highlight your work. So you can begin to communicate with people, and people, you know, employers use it, people who are hiring it use it a lot, where they can just put in a couple of keywords, right? They can put in, you know, stagehand. And then what happens is all of the people who are stagehand or who have worked in stagehand positions come up. And so, you know, what happens is that people who utilize the system most, they usually flow closest to the top, and the people who don't flow, right? So then it's a way in which people are using to connect with employees, to connect with people, to gain skills. That LinkedIn also has a number of ways in which people can learn new skills, et cetera, on it as well. So it's a robust social media system that's really about helping you leverage your professional life and really highlight your work and your work history.
So it's nice. So it sounds like, you know, I know a lot of people, they complete their resumes and then they start to send them, right, to whatever they're interested in. And this is where your resume could just live.
Correct.
Right? And so even when you're not looking, someone could be looking for you.
Absolutely.
It's really nice. And so I really encourage people to use that.
Sorry to interject, but every Thursday we offer a intro LinkedIn workshop every Thursday afternoon for individuals who are interested in learning more about LinkedIn, learning how to use LinkedIn. And then we have a number of classes that advance your skills on LinkedIn over time. So there's a session 1, 2, 3, and then we even have a LinkedIn challenge that really helps you begin to learn how to build out your reach on that social media platform.
Oh, that's good. I may utilize that, actually. I think I need to learn a little bit more about LinkedIn myself. I am not above it. I think I might settle for that one. So I know we skipped over a few if you want to run through them quickly because of time. So I do want to spend a little bit more time about what other resources that people can get at Actors Fund? I know you mentioned the resume writing, you mentioned the LinkedIn, and I know that you offer so many things. I really just want to encourage the members to really utilize the services because they're there and waiting for them. You know, it can really move whatever they want forward.
Yeah, you started off this conversation by speaking to the complications that many of your members are experiencing right now, given the slowdown, shutdown of the industry. And the Career Center really is a resource for the community to help them, your members, navigate this crazy maze with someone else, right? You do not have to do this on your own.
Yeah.
You do not have to figure it all out. And so if you are attempting as best as you can to understand more about who you are as a worker and how, what you've done over time, like what that story is, we are there to help you. We have workshops to help you understand more about who you are, workshops to help you understand more about what your values are as a worker, what your skills are, not just what your skills are, but what your preferred skills are. Because a lot of people have a number of skills that are burnout skills. And burnout skills are things that I'm really good at. I'm often called on to utilize these skills a lot, but I actually don't like using these skills, right? And so we help you understand those and really navigate ways so that you don't have to be in situations where you are using skills that are not your preferred skills. So we have workshops to help you deal with that. We have workshops to help you figure out your resume, how to tell your story on your resume, how to, as we talked about during this session, how to use parse statements effectively, when to use them, how to use them on LinkedIn. We have workshops to help you begin to understand how to market yourself during the job search process. And we also have a number of employers that we work with that promote their jobs and positions with us so that we are able to then submit our folks as potential candidates for the positions. And so there are a lot of resources that we have, and they're far and vast to mention all right here.
I have a question though, based on what you're saying. A question came in, and the question is the Actors Fund continuing the entrepreneurship program virtually at this time?
Yes, we actually, great question. We actually started our first class. The cohort was selected and we started our first class on this past Monday. So that one is closed now because we've already worked with people. But we are having each month, we have a entrepreneurial focused webinar similar to this webinar that we're on right now. And that particular webinar is always focused on entrepreneurs. This month, I'm forgetting, we're in March. So this month, we're going to be having a speaker who's going to come on and talk about intellectual property and how individuals who are creating, generating ideas, putting information out into the world, especially on places like social media, how to protect that. And so it is an entertainment lawyer that's going to help us begin to figure out how to protect our intellectual property for all of our entrepreneurial folks out there. So.
And is that all, I know you said that's happening this month, is that only offered to those in the entrepreneur group or anyone who?
Yeah, anyone can participate in that particular workshop. So yes, so we open for the classes, the entrepreneurship workshop, that information is specific to individuals who have registered for the program. But for those additional programs that I talked about, those are open to the community to be a part of that. So what I can do is I can send that information over to you, so therefore you can distribute it to your members, for anyone who is interested in attending that webinar. So we do open that up to the larger community.
Awesome. Really quick, as you were speaking, two things, because this was so robust, it happened so quickly. I know we didn't talk about quality control. I don't know if we did. I wanted to just make sure we went through everything on the list. I think we did, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we
Did
spoke
we miss
about
anything?
quality control,
We did.
adaptability, organized, resourcefulness. Time management is one that we didn't speak about. And that really is one of those other ones where people tend to think that they have and they don't. But sometimes that's because of, like what you mentioned earlier, they're measuring their time management towards as compared to someone else's. But the key things there within time management is that you are aware of how you spend your time, you're efficient in the way in which you use your time, you prioritize the most important task, you understand the value and intention behind the tasks, and you plan to ensure each of the elements happen. And again, this is a real key skill with this community, because the show must go on. And people make sure that they do the things that they need to do in order to do it. So again, that's why I don't have a problem with saying that this is a community that is steeped in time management skills. And then the last one that we didn't, or another one we didn't do, is cooperation. And again, that's just how well do you get along and cooperate to ensure that things work well. And that things move together collaboratively, which then brings us to the last one, which is a team players, right? Because people who cooperate end up having a strong team player mentality. And that is something that, again, this community has, because the Broadway community, live theater community, there are a lot of parts that have to come together in order to put on a production. And this is one space where people can articulate that they do have those skill sets.
You know, as you were speaking, first, thank you so much. It was really great. I just wanted to remind the members that this is not just for members who are currently unemployed. You know, even if you get back to work and you want to do something on the side, for those of you who have gotten sick and maybe can't do the jobs that you used to do the same way and looking to kind of pivot. If you're retired, you want to be retired soon and you want to pivot into something else, this is really for you. So I really want the members to take advantage of what you guys offer. It is just so much, you know, and this was just like, you know, I feel like a piece of sand, you know, and the vast amount of information that you guys offer. So I just really want to really encourage everyone to do this, and just taking the classes and getting the information is the step, you know, those are the steps to get to where you want to go. And so you're not feeling so stagnant. You're just not sitting around wishing for things to be different, right? You're actively a part of changing what's going on for you right now.
Absolutely. And I welcome anyone who is interested in thinking holistically about their career to join us every Monday. That is not a holiday, for orientation, which takes place at 12 noon every Monday.
And orientation is a must, right? They must
Yes.
do orientation before they can do anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can find out information about that by visiting our website, www.actorsfund.org, where all of the information will be there for you to sign up and move forward with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you, members. Thanks for the questions. I hope you guys got everything that you needed. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact me. You know my number, 212-247-5545. We'll put our contact information up at the end. Again, I want to thank Roslyn, Christopher, Actors Fund, Local One. We've been working together for a long time to make sure that we are listening and we're trying to give you what you need. So thank you.
Thank you.